Today on the We Invested podcast, we have Dan Thompson, the founder of Wise Money Tools. Dan, how are you doing today?
I'm doing great. Thank you.
Yeah.
How about yourself?
I'm doing great. I'm excited to learn more and get the chance to pick your brain. But before we get started, would you mind letting the people know how they can find you on the internet, whether it's your website or social media?
Yeah, everything's pretty much Wise Money Tools. So wisemoneytools.com for the website. The YouTube channel is called Wise Money Tools. I think on Twitter and a few other, I'm called Wise Money Dan.
Mm.
But we're on just about every social media outlet.
That's awesome. So let's just start from the beginning and talk a little bit about, where you're from and where you grew up.
Grew up in Northern California, in Modesto, California. And then before I made the trek to Idaho, I live in Boise now. We lived in the Bay Area. And I mean, long story, my mom died early and my wife happened to be from Idaho. And she said, can we at least go try it? Just see what it's like. I said, okay, I'll give you 2 years. And then I know I'll be back in California. That was 1990. So we love it here. Raised all our kids here. We got 18 grandkids here.
Wow.
So so this is home now.
No, that's incredible. And Boise, Idaho is a really beautiful city, beautiful place to be. So how was that transition for you though, moving from, California now out over in Boise, Idaho?
It was actually pretty easy. I was just getting started in the financial business, so I thought, well, before I build up too big of a client base, let me make the move. And of course, back when I started in technically '86, there was no internet, dial for dollars, if you will, and so you kind of built your practice locally. And so I knew if I built it up too much, I could never leave. So we quickly made the move, and I've built pretty much my practice here. Once the internet opened up, now clients all over the country. In fact, I probably have fewer in the Boise area than I do in other states.
Absolutely. I mean, and you mentioned something that I think is a consistent theme in most stories for successful business owners and successful entrepreneurs is that kind of dialing for dollars idea, or making those cold calls and getting in front of people that you don't know and that do not know you, and you're trying to provide them a service or offer them something that they may not know they need. So I mean, what did you learn or what did you take away from that experience of having to dial for dollars and make these cold calls?
Well, the good and the bad about my situation growing up, I didn't have anywhere else to go. I wanted to be a stockbroker ever since I was 15 years old. I was driving in the car with my dad, and he had this wealthy friend. My dad had no money, but somehow had this wealthy friend. And the guy said he made $30,000 that month in the stock market. That month, I was shoveling dirt as a landscaper for 250 an hour. And I'm like, that would take me, 6 years to make
Mhm.
$30,000. So from that day on, I said, somehow I got to be a stockbroker. And that's what I set my sights on. When I finally got a company to give me a shot and hire me, I had nowhere to go, nothing else I wanted to do. So it was either dial for dollars or die. And I spent many nights in the office all by myself, opening up the phone book. Just listen to me. I can give you some good information, but is a tough way to start, no question.
Absolutely, absolutely. I mean, and just kind of fast forwarding and transitioning to the company that you've grown and built now. Um, I want to ask and understand, what is Wise Money Tools?
So what we did is years ago, I spent about 18 months with the first brokerage firm I was with, and then realized, you know what, being independent, having a lot more freedom, being able to pick and choose investments that were more suitable was more my style. So I ended up opening my own firm in about 1988. I built it up to 5 offices. I had 60 reps working for me. It was going great. Then the dot-com boom and bust came along in the late 90s. And I just said, you know what, I got to find a better way, because this, making money for a few years and then losing it, and this roller coaster ride was just too much. So I really went on a quest to try to find a better, more more predictable way to build your wealth. And so about 91, 92, I ran across this concept to pack all your cash, or as much as you cash, into safe, um, high cash value life insurance policies, and then use your life insurance policy to get into other assets like real estate. And one of the things we really like now is equipment leasing, and using that leverage. So Wise Money Tools came along in about 2006, 2007, when my boy said, "Hey, have you ever heard of this thing called YouTube? You should get out there." And so I started doing it. I mean, I've been doing a weekly video now. I think we have almost 600 videos. However, how long
Wow.
that is, we've been at
Wow.
it. And so Wise Money Tools is, the whole objective is education, strategies that people may never heard of, and more importantly, strategies that can build their wealth more predictably. And what I love is when we can knock out the tax bill. If we can save people a bunch in taxes, I think we win.
Absolutely. I mean, and I think it's interesting too that uh you got on YouTube early, like back in '06. When I interview different people, talk to different business owners, another common theme is just being curious, always remaining curious. So I think it says a lot that, you had your ear to the ground, and was you were up on like the latest technology, the latest and greatest, the next big thing back in '06. So I think that's really cool.
Yeah, who knew, right? I mean, it was so new, and I'm like, well, okay, I'll give it a go. And it's I have never advertised, I've never done anything to grow it. It's just grown organically. I'm not huge, but for what we've done and for the people we've served across the country, it's really been awesome.
And what would you say are some of the benefits that you've seen from that YouTube channel? Like what are some of the things that you enjoy the most about it?
Oh, what I love most, this is going to sound funny. This may be a little bit, I don't know, but when I finally talk to them on the phone and they say, "Am I really talking to Dan Thompson?" I've been watching your videos for a week now. I've been binging, and I can't believe I'm actually talking to you. That always just makes me smile and makes me kind of laugh, because I'm just a regular guy who wants to help them out. But that's been a fun thing.
Yeah, that's fire. It's like they feel like they talking to a star. You're famous.
Yeah.
Absolutely. You also mentioned that you started out in landscaping and making 250 an hour. So it seems like and I could be assuming here, but it sounds like that entrepreneurship bug was kind of always there. You always found ways to make money and to stay active and to, be an asset.
Yeah, I guess part of what I learned early on in high school is I really didn't want to be bossed around. I
Mm-hmm.
wanted to kind of make my own way. I think that's why I left the brokerage firm so quickly, because they were telling me what to sell my clients, and I'm like, well, what's my job? I'm supposed to understand them, know them, get an idea what kind of risks they want to take, and then help them figure this out. But they were telling me, no, you sell them this, you sell them that. And I'm like, well, that just doesn't work well for me. So I've always had this entrepreneurial bug to always want to be better than the next guy. I don't want to just be, oh, he's just another, financial advisor. I want to be the guy, you know? So yeah, I mean I put in my dues on the hard work and the time and the effort so that I could eventually get to the point where people now want to talk to me. I
Absolutely.
don't have to call anybody anymore.
Absolutely. It's all about growth, right? So was that a I can imagine it being intimidating to go from having a, a 9 to 5 salaried job to then deciding, what, I want to step out and create my own thing, create my own company. How was that transition for you? Was it intimidating, or did you jump into it head first? I mean, how was that?
It was exciting, but also very scary.
Mm,
I had two kids at the time. And again, when you go out on your own, there's nobody to call. And again, I came from a very poor background. So it wasn't like I could, hey, dad, I need a few bucks to survive. It was all on me, which is why I, I just outworked everybody. There's nobody that could work harder or longer hours, and I was so committed to my clients. I mean, I just would bend over backwards for them. And it just kind of ballooned and blossomed to the point where, like I say, now I'm very fortunate that people reach out to me, and I don't have to I don't have to open the phone book much anymore.
absolutely.
I
And I
don't
mean,
think they're having phone books anywhere anyway. Those are long gone.
no, I think that's like a one of the one of the biggest benefits, or one of the best traits or characteristics to have, is like having the mindset that you're going to outwork the competition. You're going to outwork whoever is number one. No one can outwork me. I'm going to go the hardest. I feel like that's a hidden talent, a hidden secret that's not talked about enough. Especially like in my generation, we want things kind of instantly. So understanding that you have to put in the hard work, you have to put in the hours, you have to put in the blood, sweat, and tears to get what you want. Um, I don't know, man. It's like a lost art today. What do you think?
Well, and even how we go about finding the investment strategies we use. I mean, we don't just assume something's going to work or read one report. I mean, we dive into the data and the history and so on and so forth. So we know that when we create a strategic partnership, that we've got a good solid foundation and a good, it's a tough world out there. Nothing's 100%. So you got to make sure that you're doing your research and you got your the history behind you to prove your statistics and the concepts and strategies. So all that plays into just being a good hard worker, and you just got to go to work for your clients, and that's critical.
Absolutely. There have been a few people on the podcast to talk about alternative investments in real estate, but you said something that was pretty interesting to me, which was equipment leasing, which I think is very cool, and I want to kind of dive into that a little bit later. But I want to understand what happened on your journey that led you away from the more traditional um, Wall Street investments like stocks and 401ks. What led you to these alternative investments?
I think it was time, just the going through the 80s, then the 90s, then the 2000s, and just every time we had some great years and people made a lot of money, and we thought, oh, this is awesome. They call it the Wall Street waltz: two steps forward, one step back. Well, oftentimes we'd go two steps forward and four steps back. And then, I think about the crash of 2000 and then of 2008. It took people sometimes a decade just to get back to where they were. So I knew as my clients aged, the last thing they could do was waste another decade. And then I started, the latest book that I wrote. It's called The Four Keys to Building Wealth, and it's time, compounding, leverage, and tax advantages. And the time was incredibly important, and you can't lose time. Unfortunately, when the market drops 20, 30, 40%, you lose time. And that could be the difference between a happy, successful, enjoyable retirement and one that you're struggling in, just because you missed out on those 5 or 7 or 10 years of compounding because you were waiting for your money just to recover. So those were big issues for me, and made me look more toward alternatives and more tax advantaged and more predictable.
You just mentioned your latest book, The Four Keys to Building Wealth, what was the vision and the idea um, behind that process of writing the book, and what message did you want to get out to the readers?
I wanted a book that could be read within an hour, hour and a half, that could hit the concepts that were most critical. I wanted anybody to be able to understand it. So I wrote it like a fifth grader. And in fact, there's still mistakes in it, and people will point them out. And I say, hey, that's okay. I just want the concept. Get out there, understand these four things, and you're going to be very, very successful financially. So it was I think that's the fourth book I wrote. But I just wanted it quick and easy and digital, and just you could listen to it, hear it, read it, watch it, and just get those concepts in your head so you don't make the same mistakes so many people have made before us.
It's something that I respect about the company that you've built, um, and just you as a founder, as a CEO, is that you you're striving to reach your audience and the people like in every medium platform possible. So from audio to video to written word, websites. What was the idea behind that? Why is it important for you to be in these different avenues and reach people in these different fashions?
Well, I think you said it perfectly. Everybody understands things, and they learn differently. Some read, reading is their way. Some listening, some watching. So I figured, hey, let's just hit them all. We'll
Exactly.
make sure that however they learn and however they grasp concepts, that they can do it the easiest way for themselves.
Absolutely. Could you explain a little more about your investment philosophy and the goals you have, or the goals that you hope to achieve through that philosophy?
Yeah. So first thing is protect your money. So get the capital in a safe position that you don't have to worry about. And other than banks, the safest place to store your capital is in a high quality, highly rated insurance policy. So we just cram as much money in there as the insurance company will let us. From there, we'll use leverage. In other words, we're going to borrow and we're going to use the policy as collateral to go get other investments. And the only way we're going to use that strategy is if the other investment has a predictable outcome as well. So multifamily, equipment leasing, we have a cash value fund, things like that, where we can leverage. And now we got the $1 doing the work of two, and then $3, $4. So we're still staying in a very safe um, risk tolerance. But what happens is we suddenly go from a 5-6% return to an 8-9% return to a 10-12% return. And oftentimes when we work long enough with our clients, we're getting into the high double digits. I shouldn't say high double digits, but into the 10s to 20% returns. And we're doing it tax advantaged, and we're doing it safely. And then the income it produces is so much more, it's just so much more income than we were typically getting off of retirement plans like 401ks and IRAs. So it's just a great wealth strategy that unfortunately Wall Street's just never going to tell you about.
Absolutely. I mean, and that's what I've learned too, like just throughout the short time that I've been studying money and understanding how to build wealth, is that alternative assets are the way to go. And you have on a shirt right now, a Nike shirt that I really agree with what it says, where it says cash flow, which I believe cash flow is extremely important to be able to become financially free and kind of live life on your own terms. So what are your thoughts about cash flow, and why is it important to you?
Oh yeah, no, you're exactly right. Ultimately, when it comes, whether you want to retire, anything you want to do in life is going to require cash flow. You're either going to go work for it, or you're going to have your money work for you and do it for you. Obviously, the latter is the best. So every investment we look at is what can it produce in cash flow? When can I start taking that? And then, of course, while I don't need it, I want my cash flow to reinvest to more cash flow, more cash flow, more cash flow. So when I retire, there's more cash flow than I could ever spend, and more assets than I could ever, you know, utilize. And then we just start to build generational wealth. You can pass that on, and we start to get into some very extensive tax and estate planning, so that you never have to worry about the, you know, Uncle Sam taking it all away from you.
And that's the beauty of like having cash flow too. Like you said, you start creating generational wealth and you can pass it on. Because like no matter how lucrative or high paying your job is, you cannot pass on a salary. But
You're right.
if you have a few um cash flowing income producing properties or investments, you can certainly pass that on to the next generation and set them up for a better future.
No question about it. You know, I always hear people talk about, oh, I got to get my debt paid off. I've got to pay my house off, you know, my, you know, all this. And I'm going, no, 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 no. Don't worry about those. Worry about assets that produce income. Then doesn't matter if you have a house payment and maybe a little bit of debt, because your cash flow works for you whether you can or not. A guy even called me today, and he was talking about this, and he's saying, well, you know, I'm so worried if I get disabled or whatever. I said, well, then the safest thing we can do is build your cash flow. So it doesn't matter if you can work, disabled, injured, your assets are producing the income and paying for your liabilities. That is the goal. That's our whole focus.
Absolutely. And you know, you touched on this topic briefly, or you touched on this topic a little earlier, but I want to ask about it again just for the purpose of getting a nice clip for social media. So I want to ask, you know, can you talk a little bit more about the infinite banking concept?
Yeah, the infinite banking concept started back in the early 2000s, and it's a great concept. But the concept was to build up cash value in a life insurance policy, and then essentially be the bank when you buy stuff. So you would use your policy to go buy a car, then you'd pay yourself back. Use it to go buy a boat, pay yourself back. And that's okay. Nothing really wrong with that. But still the focus was on buying things that don't make you money. So we kind of call it infinite banking squared, if you will. We took it to a whole nother level. We're saying, okay, we like the policy getting cash value in it, but now let's go use it for appreciating assets, cash flow assets, tax advantaged assets. And then I don't care if I have to go get a bank loan for a car, because my assets over here are going to produce the cash flow to pay that and then some. So it's the infinite banking again has a great foundation. I just think they miss out when they don't talk about the productive assets instead of a car that's going to be worth half what you pay. Even if you paid yourself back, it's still never going to build wealth buying cars.
Absolutely. I feel like if you're gonna go into debt for something, you want to go into debt for something that'll make you money and that can pay off that debt and then even put extra money, extra profit in your pocket at the same time.
Exactly. Yeah, I don't mind real estate debt at all. In fact, I almost demand it. I don't
Absolutely.
want to own real estate free and clear, because leveraging it gives you so much more opportunity to build more and more and more assets. And those assets, if they're good, predictable assets, are going to more than cover the debt service.
Absolutely. So an important branch or an important piece of your business and of your company, Wise Money Tools, is that education portion, is that education piece. Why did you put such a focus on educating listeners and potential clients? And then what benefits have you seen from pre-educating them before they reach out to you or contact you?
You know, you're the first guy I've ever heard say those words, pre-educated. That's exactly what we call them. We call it the pre-educated client. First off, it's a lot easier for us to have conversations if they know what we're going to be talking about. So having them pre-educated, if you will, is huge. But then they grasp the concept so much easier, and it's so much better for them to know why Why are we looking at multifamily? Why are we looking at equipment leasing? Because we understand the whole strategy behind everything. So education, I mean, the sad part is right now, most people, hey, they get their job, sit down with the personnel director. Hey, let's start your 401k. And they don't even calculate that maybe they're in the lowest tax bracket they'll ever be in. This is not the time to defer tax. This is time to get it out of the way. And then they'll spend 20, 30 years funding this 401k that is going to go up and down back. And they just don't have the education that the 401k is just not working. And if it was, more people would be retiring wealthy, but they're just not. We call it the dying broke philosophy. That is just it's just sad, and people need to know there are much better ways.
How was it when you first experienced creating multiple streams of income or multiple revenue streams? And then what was that moment like for you? Can you take me back like to that time?
Well, it started to get really fun. I'm like, wow, this one's sending me 5,000 a month. This one's sending me 12,000 a month. And all of a sudden you're just getting all these checks, and it's like the challenge is getting them reinvested so that you can keep the compounding going. And luckily we have some really good, ways to do that. But yeah, it's mind blowing to just wake up and all of a sudden your bank account just grew 20 or 50,000 bucks overnight. And I want everybody to experience that.
Absolutely. And I'm sure it's a beautiful moment once you help a client or once you help a student reach that same goal.
Oh gosh, yeah. And you know what? There's some sad situations along the way, and we're lucky that we do the life insurance because sometimes, I mean, I've had unfortunate situations where people die young and die early or unexpected, or worse, when they've held on with a sickness or an illness for a while. They spend a lot of their money, and then, but when they die, I'm telling you that life insurance death benefit, we don't even hardly talk about it, but it is just huge in the lives of those people who have those tragic situations. And I love it that we're in the best of both worlds. We can create income, we can create growth, and we can protect in those horrible situations where premature death comes along.
Absolutely. I mean, a key word or like a buzzword that has been used a few times throughout this interview is compounding, which is, I, I guess they say it's like one of the eighth wonders of the world. It's a beautiful thing, but can you talk a little bit more about that? Like what exactly compounding means and how it's beneficial?
Yeah. So here's a I hope this doesn't get too mathy, but I always look at compounding as how many compounding periods do you have in your lifetime? So let's just say somebody can average 10% return. Well, that means they're going to double their money every 7 years. Okay.
Mhm.
So if I work for, let's just make it easy, 7 times 7 is 49. Let's say I'm going to work 49 years in my life. I have 7 compounding periods, and that's it. So 100,000 to 200 to 400 to 800 to, da 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 da. 7 compounding periods. If I have a market go against me and I go backwards and I lose a compounding period, now I only have 6. If I lose 2 compounding periods, now I only have 5. And it's those last 1 or 2 compounding periods that takes wealth from a million to 2 million to 4 million to 8 million. I mean, that's where the real money's made, is if you can give it time for your money to compound. So in the nutshell, we don't want to lose a compounding period. We want to be compounding every day if we possibly can. And money that's sitting idle needs to get compounding as quickly as we can. And even if it's not the rate of return that we're hoping for, it's not that, you'd be surprised what'll happen over time if you just let your money grow and compound. And you're exactly right. I think it was Einstein said it's the eighth wonder of the world. And it's just something that is so it's so it's so important to building wealth, but people sometimes will sit years and years and years on capital and not thinking what they're missing out on. And unfortunately, our lives have a only this much span. We don't want to miss a day.
Absolutely. Um, just I guess kind of going back to alternative investments. Um, I think one of the best alternative investments to have is having your own business, having your own company. I feel like that's one of the fastest ways to accumulate wealth, one of the quickest ways to build wealth. So I mean, with that being said, how did you focus on gaining your business acumen and learning about how to successfully run a company and how to do business?
Yeah, no, I'll tell you, you're exactly right. It can be an awesome way to build your wealth quickly. The other thing that's nice is you can go buy a business that's already productive. So even though, from a startup perspective, a lot of businesses fail in the first years. So I actually, and my sons are really good at this. They look for businesses that have been around for 10 or 15 years. Maybe the guy's retiring, and they're always on the hunt to buy businesses, because the old theory is, it's easier to buy cash flow than to create it. So going in and being able to buy a business, and right now there's so many owners that'll carry it for you too. So
Mhm.
it's not like you have to come up with millions and millions of dollars. Some businesses, you can come in with a few bucks and the owner will carry it. Sometimes the owner will work with you for a few years. So I couldn't agree with you more. That's a great way to build wealth. It's a like you say, a very quick way to build cash flow as well. Um, but it's going to take some tenacity and some commitment, and uh, and the education that I would get is more from a financial one on how to read books. Not, I don't mean books. I mean the books, the revenue, income, operating costs, salaries, all that. I would learn how to read financial statements and balance sheets, and those kind of things. I think would be more important. In fact, if I went to school right now, that's all I would. I don't even know if I'd go to school. I'd go, I would get online and just somebody teach me how to read these balance sheets, income statements, and so that I can dissect a business in about 15 or 20 minutes as to whether or not it's something I want to buy. And then, and the other side of it is there are so many investment tools out there and investors. If you can show them, hey, I'm looking at buying this business. I don't have the capital right now, but look at all these numbers, the revenues, da 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 da. There's investors out there who'd love to, participate with you. So sky's the limit on anybody who wants to get involved. You don't have to have money. You don't have to be a genius. You just have to know a few things, be a hard worker, you get a lot done.
Absolutely. I mean, and just speaking of investors and partnering with others to, you know, purchase investments, purchase assets, you've cultivated and grown like your own community of people that watch you faithfully and that follow what you do. What role does networking play at this point in your career?
Well, it's great in the sense that um, our clients kind of know the client that works well with us. And so, like, just even today, I probably got 2 or 3 emails saying, "Hey, my friend so and so is interested because of this," and I did a live video this afternoon, and next thing you know, I've got 4 or 5 new referrals from clients who say, "Hey, my friend, he's in the same situation I'm in. Can you help him out?" So networking is great. Once somebody knows what we're doing, they love to tell other people.
Absolutely. What would you say are some roadblocks or lessons that you've learned throughout your career and throughout your journey as a business owner, entrepreneur?
This is going to sound a little funny, but not willing to take risk early on.
Mm.
My youngest son, he's kind of funny. He says, "Hey, I'm still in my 20s. This is the time to go bankrupt."
Yeah.
not that he ever will or wants to, but the message is don't be afraid. Get out there, you know, take a little bit more risk than maybe you are 100% comfortable with. And I don't mean, risk it on the newest crypto coin or something like that, but risk it on yourself. You can be the hardest worker in the whole company or whatever you want to do. So take the risk and put the marketing dollars into yourself. If you, but I think I was way too, I don't know, protective of my money. I would earn it, and I'm like, okay, now I got to hoard it, right? And
Yeah.
I wish I would have spent more on development and marketing and
Mm.
all that early on. I would have maybe got to where I'm at even faster.
Wow. Now that's actually a great piece of advice. It's just not being too conservative or not being too cautious and like afraid to lose it. Because I mean, once you finally get it and it's like this is what you've been waiting for, now you don't want to lose it. Like I think that's a reasonable fear or like a reasonable outlook to have on it. But just hearing that advice is pretty reassuring. Just like now take that risk on yourself and bet on yourself.
Yeah. What's really funny is sometimes you work the hardest when your bank account says zero. And
Exactly.
then when the bank account has some money in it, you don't work as hard. So I think back, I think, man, if I would have just taken what I earned and spend it on more marketing. So my bank account was always zero. So I had to go to work, work, work. But I
Right.
was but I was using my money in a productive way. And nowadays it's so much easier. I mean, to advertise on Facebook or YouTube or whatever. I mean, you can get your message out so quickly to so many people. But I would have invested more in myself, I guess is the way to say it, than I did. And I would tell people just don't don't hold back. Take the risk on yourself and just go at it.
At this point in your career, how do you define success as a founder, entrepreneur, business owner?
Two ways. One, kind of mentoring new advisors, young guys, and helping them get on track and then more importantly, and the really one that gets me is just when I get that call from a client that's been with me for 3, 5, 7, 10 years and just say, when they, Dan, I just, we don't know what we would have done without you. You saved our finances, you saved our financial world, so to speak. That is success to me all the way in and out. I mean, plenty of money's coming in. So now the only thing that really counts is what did you make a difference and how?
Absolutely. What does the future of Wise Money Tools look like to you?
1 million subscribers. We want to
I
we want to
like that.
touch the world. When people think about money, we want them to say, "Hey, Wise Money Tools has got the strategies. Go talk to them." So yeah, we can't grow bigger than. In fact, I've got a guy that I work with pretty closely. He's kind of a partner in one of our strategic strategies, and we both say if we don't have $1 trillion in our bank of clients before we die, we failed.
No, that's a big goal, man, and I like it. I like that. Um, Dan, man, thank you so much for spending some time with us today. You gave some really great actionable advice, man, and I really enjoy having this conversation. But before we go, where can people find your latest book, The Four Keys to Building Wealth?
So it's right on our website. It comes in a digital form, so it's really easy. You can just download it right from there. Um, I think it's at the bottom of every YouTube channel as well, or YouTube video in the comments section. It's called The Four Keys to Building Wealth. It's also on Amazon if you want a hard copy and actually turn the pages. Yeah. So, and then there's a couple other books that are a little longer, little different philosophy, but I would tell everybody before you do anything, read the four keys. It's going to change your life.
Awesome, man.
Maybe
Awesome.
not change your life, but change your focus.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Well, Dan, thanks again, man. I really enjoyed it.
You bet. Thank you. It's been fun talking to you.